There seems to be a lot of confusion today about just what religion even means and how Christianity was in such violation of the natural way of being for humans. Historically, there was never a separation between race and religion. In fact, gods were ethnic, and they were believed to be our own ancestors. In other words, there was an ancestral connection between religion and family, and by extension, race. The separation between race and religion started with Saul turned Paul of Tarsus, who declared that there was no such thing as race, and that his God was the uni-God for all people. Oddly, there are two groups of people who greatly misunderstand the meaning of ethnic religion. These two groups are right-wing, especially alt-right Christians, and the other group are liberal, left-wing pagans. So let's look at this closely, starting with the words of a scholar, a PhD in late antiquity.
In antiquity, relations between heaven and earth are configured along ethnic lines. Gods are local both in terms of peoples and in terms of places, which means also that ethnic gods, and certainly the God of Israel, are ethnic as well. They attach to people. And it also means that in antiquity, another thing that can be confuse the idea of quote-unquote conversion, in antiquity all gods exist. All gods exist. You can posit different relationships between these different superpowers or extra-human powers. Some gods are bigger than others, some gods are translocal in a way that smaller gods are not, but all gods actually exist. I want to also apologize for the translation of ethne. English gives wiggle room to the concept because you can properly translate the world either as Gentiles or as pagans. That exactly confuses the enterprise of looking at this period critically, because gods and humans form family groups, so that a Gentile is a pagan and a pagan is a Gentile. If people are intrinsically born into relations with their gods, there is no such thing as this ethnically neutral term that English has for Gentiles. It's all of these people. If you're not, if you're a non-Gentile, if you're a non-pagan, then you're a Jew in this period.
Wait. Wait. So if you are a non-Gentile, you are a Jew, but Gentile means pagan? Ethnic means pagan? What does Etymonline, the online dictionary for etymology and word origins, have to say about the meaning of ethnic? Oh my goodness. Pagan and heathen is the first thing it says for ethnic. Pagan and heathen. What? Wait a second. Are you saying that ethnicity and spirituality are the same? That's what that PhD in ancient religion just said. And this is what Etymonline, the online dictionary of word origins, is saying. Ethnic means pagan or heathen. Wow. From the Latin ethnicus, from the Greek ethnikos, of or for a nation, national. National, nation, that almost sounds like it might have the same root as the word natal. And didn't she just say that you were born into religion? And that gods were attached to people and places? Interesting. Ethnos, a band of people living together. A nation, people, tribe, or caste. Also use of swarms or flocks of animals. So the ethnos must be the natural way of being for the human animal. Just like bees or insects swarm and birds and sheep flock, we have an ethnos. Interesting. Oh, people of one's own kind. Interesting. Let's see. Earlier in English as a noun, so ethnic meant a heathen, a pagan, who is not a Christian or a Jew. A Christian or a Jew. That's interesting that those two things go together. That's interesting that both of those things are defined as not ethnic, but heathen and pagan are ethnic. Oh, in modern use, it's changed. Since when? 1945. That's very interesting. Oh, ethne translates Hebrew goyim, plural of goy, nation, non-Israelites? What? Huh. Oh, especially a Gentile nation. Well, that expert just said that ethne could mean pagan or Gentile. I wonder what the root and the origins of Gentile are. Let's see. One who is not a Jew, circa 1400s, but earlier, one who is not a Christian, a pagan. So Gentile also means pagan. That's interesting. Oh, what's the root of Gentile? Gen? That sounds an awful lot like genetics. Genes. Oh, that's interesting because it does come from the Roman gens, Latin gentilis, of the same family or clan. Oh, so to be a Gentile meant that you belonged to a family or clan. The Roman gens. Interesting. From the Proto-Indo-European root gene, to give birth, beget, with derivatives referring to procreation and familial and tribal groups. Interesting. So Gentile meant, in Latin, of or belonging to the same nation?
So in terms of cult being one word that functions for what we think of as religion, cult, which is a formal way with inherited protocols for showing respect to the divine, whatever that, however you configure divinity. Cult is a kinship designation, and kinship is a cult designation. I have excerpts there both from Herodotus and many centuries later from Paul that configure cult and ethnicity almost identically. Very interesting. Herodotus says that kinship and therefore cult are not only synonymous, but he also says shared language as well in his list of identifiers. Paul, as a Hellenistic Jew, has to drop shared language as a kinship identifier, since Greek is one of the main Jewish languages in his period.
Well, now that's interesting because I hear a lot of these Christians in the adult right, I mean the alt-right, I just call them the dolt-right because there's so many dolts saying a lot of nonsense that doesn't really hold up historically, and they don't know what they're talking about. And I hear some of these Christian dolts saying that Christianity is European because of the Greek element. Well, that's funny because this PhD in religion during late antiquity says that Greek was a major language of the Jews at that time, and she also says that the Greeks, Herodotus, considered language to be a major part of ethnicity. This sounds very much like my doctrine of the ethnos being a tapestry of many threads, and that you cannot remove the threads, because if you start removing them one by one, the ethnos, the tapestry, falls apart and you no longer have your ethnic identity. It sounds like this holds up to history because Herodotus in Greek antiquity said that language was an important part of ethnic identity. Paul, who's actually, his real name was Saul of Tarsus, he had to remove language from his identity or from his definition of racial and ethnic identity. Why? Because he was speaking Greek, and so were so many other Jews at that time. So it sounds like he might have been one of these ethnically confused people because his ethnos started being pulled apart. He was no longer speaking Hebrew, which is the language of his own ethnos. So I wonder what else Saul turned Paul, had to say about race. Well, we already know that Gentile means ethnic, and it means essentially racial, a full racial cohesive identity. It doesn't really mean Christian, because as we know from looking at the definitions, Gentile really meant not a Jew or a Christian. Because Christians were really just a sect of Judaism in late antiquity. It must have been Judaism for the confused Jews, because they were no longer speaking their ethnic language anymore. He was speaking Greek. So that must explain why he was so confused. Galatians 3:23, written by Saul of Tarsus, says, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ." All one? This sounds awfully one race, globalist to me. Nor is there male nor female. That sounds awfully similar to some of this gender confusion we have going on today. But surely I must be misinterpreting this verse. It must be the only one. Wait a second. He wrote another letter to the Corinthians where he said, "We are all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body." That sounds a little globalist too. "Whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, we are all given the one Spirit to drink." That's weird. That sounds weird. That sounds like mind control to me. That sounds like a psychological manipulation promoting one identity, one race, under one God, for the one world.
Naciones Unidas, Lord, we worship you around your throne. The nations together, te ofrecemos nuestra adoración. Y'all remember this song? We sing One Kingdom. Sing with us the best you can, English and Spanish. Here we go. Naciones Unidas, Lord, we worship you around your throne. The nations together, te ofrecemos nuestra adoración. Cada pueblo, every people, every tongue, cada lengua, tuyo el reino. Father, let your kingdom come. One kingdom, your kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven.
So religion, what we call religion, ancient people thought of as ancestral custom. I give a list of them there in Greek and in Latin. People are born into their obligations to their particular gods, and this begins with family gods and moves on up. Once Augustus promotes the worship of his genius in the empire, he positions himself as the pater familias of the empire. So not only are cities family-based religious institutions, The empire is, in a sense, a family-based religious institution, which is one of the reasons why dynastic shifts are as problematic as they are in the Roman Empire. Okay, so family relations between gods and people are literally that. Peoples are thought of as descending from their gods. I give here a list of things from Jewish ancestral writings because very often Jews are considered a special exception to these types of common Mediterranean ways of thinking. I want to say there that Israel is talked about as God's son, maybe not in as up close and personal a way as say Julius Caesar was descended from Venus, but there's this idea of a family relationship between gods and their humans.
Jesus Christ was perhaps the most influential person in Western civilization. His life and beliefs sparked a movement that has influenced the world and a faith practiced by over 2 billion people. His ideas are revolutionary, but it's important to understand both the spiritual and historical basis for these ideas. In Jesus and his Jewish influences, you'll explore how the actions and teachings of Jesus were the product of the traditions, cultures, and historical developments of ancient Judaism. Archaeologist and award-winning biblical scholar Jody Magnus approaches this course from a historical perspective, giving you insight into the ancient world that Jesus was born into and the tumultuous events of early Jewish history.
The ancient Judaism of Jesus' time was very different from the Judaism as it is practiced today.
You'll learn what it meant to Jesus to be a Jew in ancient Israel, discover how early Judaism was vastly different from the rabbinic Judaism practiced today, and see how Jesus' golden rule actually represented a broad disagreement amongst ancient Jews.
The fascinating and complex story of Judaism can give us a much better understanding of the life and teachings of this man that his followers came to call the Messiah.
Okay, but surely there's nothing in the Bible that's anti-family. Wait, Luke 14:26? If a man come to me and hate not his father and mother, and wife and children, and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Well, I mean, that must be taken out of context. I mean, that can't really mean that you should hate your own family. I mean, that's crazy. Wait. Matthew 10:37. If anyone loves their father or mother more than me anyone who loves their father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoa. I guess he really is a jealous God. But even though it says that, Christians didn't really act that way, did they? What's this? Anti-familial Tendencies in Ancient Christianity by scholar Elizabeth A. Clark in the Journal of the History of Sexuality by the University of Texas Press. I wonder, since the Bible in the New Testament says that you should hate your own son, I wonder what it says about sons. Okay, here we go. One of the most dramatic stories of the early Christian ascetic rejection of family is recounted in John Cassian's Institutes. He tells the tale of a certain Patermutus who wished to join a monastery in the company of his young son. To test Patermutus's ascetic resolve, the child was struck, abused, and left to wallow in his own dirt, tears smudging his grimy face. What? This is an account of something that actually happened in the Middle Ages? Yet the abbot of the monastery had a harder test in store. He ordered Patermutus to throw his son into a fast-flowing river? And Patermutus did? What? Unknown to the father, the abbot had stationed 2 monks by the shore to rescue the child from drowning. The point of the story, however, centers not on the fate of the child, but on Patermutus's obedience. He was proved such a worthy renunciate that he later assumed the abbot's place as head of the monastery. To us, the tale suggests child abuse. To ascetic listeners of yore, Patermutus was a hero, copying the deed of Abraham. Abraham's near sacrifice of Isaac is worth noting, provided a biblical model for ascetics' renunciation of their families. Whoa.
But there's this idea of a family relationship between gods and their humans. In terms of the citizens of a city being of one genos, it would be like talking about the race of the New Yorkers or the race of the Tel Avivians, which maybe we do. Cities are family-based religious institutions, so that in the book of the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 18, verse 24, a certain Eudaios named Apollos came to Ephesus. He was an Alexandrian by genos. That's an interesting mixed idea that the author of Acts gives. Given that this is a blood term, how many sets of biological parents can you have, right? 1. And yet, even though he is of this one genos, namely of, he's a Eudaios, by virtue of the fact that he's an Alexandrian, quote, by genos, that means he's an Alexandrian citizen. That's how naturally the biological idea of citizenship floats into the picture. Also, Appion's protest recorded in Josephus's Contra Appionum. If Jews want to be Alexandrian citizens, why don't they worship the same gods as the Alexandrians? It's a good question and a fair one. If you're part of the family, you are obligated to that family's gods.
This discussion is intended to reach out to ethnic Europeans who find that Christianity is just not speaking to them. Rather than shutting themselves off to the rich benefit that spirituality has to offer altogether, and rather than looking for this fulfillment in the native faiths of other world cultures, it is important to know that Europeans also have an indigenous belief system filled with uplifting spirituality, moral guidance, and that nurtures a positive mindset to help overcome life's hurdles. Most importantly, European native faith is tied to the ethnic European psyche. As I have been delving into these studies, the profound importance of Carl Jung's theories on archetypes and the cultural collective unconscious become ever more overt. In the past several years, science has made great headway in discovering the field of epigenetics, inherited memory, and the role that both culture and the view that the individual holds of their ancestry all play a role in our own psyche. It is demonstrable that the psyches of all people are linked to the culture from which they descend. So, although it is socially taboo to say it, science demonstrates incontrovertibly that behavior is strongly linked to genetics. Your genetics obviously come from your ancestry, and your ancestry is linked to the culture that birthed your ethnic group. I assert very strongly that a solid foundation in ethnoculture is essential for all people of all backgrounds in order to have a whole psyche that is grounded and healthy. Therefore, when an individual finds themselves feeling spiritually lost, regardless of their ethnic background, my advice would always be the same. Return to your heritage and your roots. Look to the native faith of your ancestors. It will resonate with you far more deeply and more profoundly than a foreign religion ever could. There was a time when ethnicity, language, mythos, and tribal identity were all one and the same. We find ourselves in a position today where our people are scattered from their ancestral lands and their tribal identities have been eroded, thereby causing a fracturing of both our individual and collective psyches. Any attempt to reignite the flames of ethnic identity, and this goes for all people of all races, is to be applauded. For if we fail to grasp on to our own identity and claim it strongly, assertively, and passionately, the homogenization process will continue to the ever-hastening erasure of ethnic diversity on this planet. Read more about authentic and indigenous European faith, history, heritage, and culture at www.carolynemerick.com. Please also check out www.folkfaith.org and folkright.com.